Moscow has said its forces are advancing in all tactical directions in Ukraine and have taken control of 28 settlements this month. 3 people were killed, 16 others injured after a Russian missile destroyed a power facility and power grid in Kyiv on Friday. Regional governor said that S-300 missiles were used in the attacks that occurred at midnight local time. Russian air defense systems destroyed a Ukrainian drone over Tatstan region. 2 airports in Tatstan suspended operations for more than a couple of hours on Friday for safety reasons. US President Joe Biden has given permission to Ukraine to strike inside Russian territory with US-made weapons. Biden said Kyiv can only hit targets over the border close to Kharkiv and what the US characterizes as acts of self-defense. The move follows Kyiv requesting Washington, D.C. to change its policy a few weeks ago. And after the U.S. authorizing Kyiv to use U.S.-supplied weapons against Russia, Kremlin has hit back, says that it was already aware of attempts being made by Ukraine to strike Russian targets using weapons provided by the United States. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said, while they don't know about the details of Biden's decision, the reported step shows how deeply Washington is involved in the conflict. And DD India correspondent Dasha Chernishova joins us live from Moscow. Dasha, what is the latest on the advances by the Russian forces in Ukraine?
Well, indeed, the Russian Ministry of Defense claims it has been making steady advancements on all tactical directions in Ukraine. We also understand from Andrei Belousov, who has been recently appointed as Russia's defense minister, that since the start of 2024, the Russian armed forces have managed to take control of 880 square kilometers in Ukraine. And in May alone, he says the Russian armed forces have managed to take control over 28 settlements. Those include the Kharkiv direction that has been opened most recently, with the Russian forces trying to create the so-called buffer zone in that area. We also understand that the Ukrainian army, according to Moscow, has lost over 35,000 servicemen in May alone, as well as 2.7 thousand units of the military equipment. So according to Moscow, the operation is ongoing, with the goals expected to be achieved by the Russian military one way or another. And they continue to say that what's happening at the moment is the West fueling this conflict by supplying more weapons to Ukraine.
And just on that, Dasha, divisions are surfacing in the West over the weapons use policy for Ukraine. Kremlin says Kyiv has been targeting their territories already. What more can you tell us on this?
Well, indeed, Moscow regards these steps as the further escalation of the conflict in Ukraine. That does speak a lot about the further involvement of NATO countries into this conflict. The Russian officials, both the Russian president, his spokesman, as well as the foreign ministry, have been speaking over the past days, suggesting that it is impossible to use long-range, high-precision weapons that have been supplied to Ukraine without the satellites data from the Western countries. So that's why they say they know that these attacks have already been carried out with the support of those Western countries. But what they say is happening now is further escalation by those Western states that do want to inflict what Moscow says is a strategic defeat against Russia on the battlefield. In the meantime, the officials here insist that no matter if there is any permission or not, Russia will continue its operation and its course will not be deviated or one way or another altered because of that permission. So Moscow is quite certain that it is going to achieve the goals. In the meantime, saying that the results of such actions by the Western countries could be quite detrimental, because it is undermining not just the global security, but also brings the world closer to the potential conflict between Russia and NATO countries.
Dasha, thank you for those updates.